Hey, Teresa,
I,
you know, like the last time we spoke, something shifted and impacted me. And I thought, man, this is something, to be shared. And there were several things in our conversation that sort of jumped out at me when you mentioned about waking people up to their own health.
hmm
And the biggest one probably was no one gets out of here alive.
wow.
That really that kind of sort of stopped me in my tracks. And when you mentioned about QTR, quality time remaining, and for me it was like, yeah, I know I'm not going to be here, forever. Uh, just to think about the quality time remaining, that had a sort of a big shift. I tell you what it was for me. It's QTR. It's like I don't know how much quality time I've got. I don't know when I'm going to kick the bucket, right? But what I do know and what I do have is this present moment,
Yeah.
this thing. I mean, by the time I've just sort of uttered these words out of my mouth, I'm in a new present moment.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's it's like I have I'm gonna say I have this ability to co-create or create my experience of now.
Mhm.
Yeah. That was like an eye-opener for me.
Wow. What did you see for yourself when you saw that open up? What did that spur you to want to do?
Hmm. It's sinking in.
Okay.
It's sinking in. So it's sinking in for me. It wasn't like an insight that like the flash of bolt of lightning. It was the slow drip feed insight.
I get that. Yeah.
So who we've got is my good friend Rosanna.
Hi, Rosanna. It's
So
nice to meet you.
Hi.
I'm
Yeah.
Teresa.
Hi, Teresa. Hi, Hakan.
uh, Rosanna, she, oh, she's been literally at the beginning of my sort of coaching journey, and
Mm.
she's always been there. And we met through, um, I think it was the Michael Neal's Inner Circle, or it might have been his Super Coach Cafe.
I don't remember, but yes, the, with
One
Michael.
of those.
Yeah,
Yeah,
or a
we're
CTI or
Michael
something.
buddies.
Mhm.
Yeah, I love Michael's work. He was just here in Austin. One of my friends went to see him, and she was like, it was just wonderful being in the room of people who are
Mm,
seeing things, new and different. There's a
mm,
synergy that's happening. I think it's an awakening of a conscious level we haven't had before.
mm.
And so I think there's many, many people who are seeing we've been thinking a little bit too small, you know, about our life and about why we're here. And it's a great conversation to have.
So, Rosanna, earlier on, just before you was here, I was just sort of kind of recapping about the three things that really landed for me when I was speaking with Teresa before. And one
Mhm.
of them was like waking people up to their own health. And the second one is none of us get out of here alive. And QTR, quality time remaining.
What was the last one?
QTR, quality time remaining. So I was sort of mentioning with Teresa, it's like, I don't know when I'm going to kick the bucket. I don't know when that's going to happen. But what I do know is I've got this present moment, this here and now. And even, I've just sort of spoke the here and now. That was like in the past. And yeah, something in that sort of resonated with me is like each and every one of us has the opportunity to co-create our experience of life in the moment, in this here and now. And Teresa just sort of asked me, how's that landed for me? And for me, it's like the drip feed insight rather than the bolt of lightning.
It's a really interesting conversation. I had it with my mother-in-law not too long ago, maybe 6 months ago. And I've been talking to her for a long time, but sometimes you just don't know what's happening on the inside of someone. And so when I mentioned that to her, well, she's also a nurse. She was one of my very first mentors in ICU when I graduated nursing school. And so we've known each other for a really long time. And I told her, I said, you'll never see a U-Haul behind a hearse because you can't take it with you. And she looked at me and she's like, what? And I said, yeah, I said, it's here for us to enjoy life. We have our things that we love, our homes, our, belongings, our money, but we don't get more time. We get the time that we have here. How do you want to live that? And it shifted something for her as well. She's like, I have never thought about that before. And I said, what about your quality time remaining? What do we want to do between now and then? And really interestingly, there's been a softening of expectations. I would say a relaxing of long held beliefs of how things are supposed to be, to allowing a more open conversation and relationship with each other, even. A lot of internal shifts happened for her and for myself, because it was like, oh, how do we want to be between now and then? And I told her, I said, I just want to enjoy you. I want to enjoy all the parts of being with you and sharing this life together. And it's really made a big difference. Like even just going out to eat, it's almost more intentional of, listen, we're spending a time together, a meal together, just enjoying each other's company. That's really important. And so I think you're right. It's like this slow drip, like what do I see for the next quality time remaining for myself, as well as the people in my life? What do I want to create in that space? And it's a beautiful thing to see it.
As you said that, do you know what came to my mind?
Hmm.
It's like going to a restaurant, like Dominic Scafidi sort of talked about this. You go into a Michelin 5-star restaurant, you know, and you got two choices. You could either wolf down the meal, you know, or you could actually savor it, enjoy every taste and bite, because there's been so much care. Well, I'm assuming there's been so much care put into that meal, and like take the time to enjoy it. And as you were talking, what sort of came to me was uh, it's kind of slipped now, but
I can. It
yeah,
came back. No, if it came back, just
it's
go
coming
go
back.
ahead.
It's coming
Yeah.
back. Yeah, what it is like, the QTI is like really placing importance on what is actually important. And when I look at what is actually really important, it makes certain other things or goals or what I want to achieve insignificant.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we also have to remember we are creating that experience every time we engage, every time we think about something, we're creating an experience of whatever it is we're thinking about. And becoming conscious of our thoughts, of the fact that we are creating a life for ourselves here on earth, but we're totally connected to our spiritual nature, totally connected. There is no separation. And seeing that larger picture of that innate health, of that ability to have wisdom no matter what's happening in our life is always there. It gives a richness and a fullness to life that I think most of us miss at different times in our life, especially when we're just working, you and getting up, going to work, getting up, going to work, and doing the things just to live. We miss out on significant parts of our life because we don't give them attention. It's what do you put your attention on? I think that really helps us feel that sense of purpose, of fulfillment, of our best life. I don't know. The principles have opened up a door for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I think just to be in the conversation. But Rosanna, I want to hear what you were thinking about.
No, I just thought about an example that was so like obvious to me, but something shifted when I heard it. It was Robert Holden in a small video with a banana. He said, "Are you one of those that start to banana just to finish it just like no,
Mm-hmm.
or do you enjoy the banana?" And I find myself many times just starting something because I want to finish it.
Mm-hmm.
And that example that seems like it was kind of funny brings me back to, okay, I'm doing this now, no, in this conversation, or even watching a movie. Sometimes I'm okay. How long will it take? And I want it to finish to go to the next thing, and just it brings me back. If I decided to watch the movie, I'll stay here, without seeing the hour or something.
I
That's
know,
what.
it's like, what are we in such a hurry for?
Yeah.
That was one of the things that struck me. What am I in such a hurry for? Like, it used to be, I just can't wait till this workday is over, right? I just can't wait till this day is over. But if I remembered to drop in, to really connect with the patients and the people I was working with, I enjoyed that. I didn't really want it to go by so fast that I missed opportunities. And I think That was one of the places where when I first heard the principles, in fact, it's really kind of funny. The Friday before I was going to turn in my resignation, I went to a conference, and that's where I heard about the three principles. That's why Keith Blevins did a conference for our holistic nurses chapter, and it was all about the principles. And at 9:30 in the morning, I heard something that completely changed my world about separate realities, and I went, I'm trying way too hard to control the people in my life, and it's hurting me. And I'd had 5 years of chronic pain. I was like, I'm tired. You know, I didn't really call it stress. I was just sick and tired. I was like, I just want something different. I want something to shift. I want something to change. And when I heard that about the principles only work one way, and it's you, I knew it was true. I knew it was true. Like deep in my heart, I was like, oh, look what you're doing with your own thinking. And you're getting in your life all of these problems that somehow you have to solve. And I didn't know how to solve that problem. So I was just going to quit my job, you know? And Monday morning, I had a new job. It was me. I changed. I was like, I don't really want to quit my job. I want relief. I want relief from this overthinking or this efforting when I wanted to stop hurting myself with my thinking. And I didn't know how. I knew there was a connection. I had been studying for 20 years. I've done every modality you can imagine to fix my problems. I didn't know it was a thinking problem. And that's why I was like, nope, we're going to teach this to nurses from now until I can't speak anymore, because it was that profound and it's that life-changing for not just the nurses, but for everyone we touch. And it's not just nurses. I know that. It's anyone who hears this message, who gains a little bit of insight or understanding within themselves. It's like when Sid says, if you take what I hear and you go, Sid Banks says, blah, 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 I would say you heard nothing. But if you say, Sid Banks said, and I heard, that's an insight. That's for you. You get to have that. That's the conversation. It's not about anybody's one story. It's our collective stories. It's the things we share with other people that help people to have an insight of their own. And that's a beautiful thing. It's human connection. It's love. It's compassion. It's healing. And it's fun. It's so much fun.
You know, when you was talking about separate realities, before you had your insight, did it for you seem so real that the problem was other people? It was other things out, you know.
I think it was more I, in my all self-righteousness, could see that if they would just do this,
Yeah,
life would be better, right?
yeah.
If they would just listen to me, we could solve their problem. However, they were not interested in my opinion. And they were doing them, they were doing them. They were trying to solve their own problems. I was the one that took on the responsibility of my own accord. And nurses are fix-it people. We want everyone to feel good and feel better. And we know that we can't do it. But I think when it comes to our families, it's really hard to watch people go through their own experiences. So it was that it was just a really, like you were saying a minute ago, it just kind of comes to you like a drip feed, like oh, look what you've been doing with your thinking, and your health is the one that's failing. You know, going to doctors and appointments and nobody has an answer is a little bit scary. And to not know that it was of my own making, per se, was really interesting for me. It really rocked my world, because I thought, I know this. Like on a certain level, we know this,
Mm.
but we don't know it until we go, oh, it's like when you were describing the feeling of no one gets out of here alive. It's like that kind of knowing. Like, oh, hold on a minute.
Yeah, it's like being like in a dark warehouse. Like there is light there, but when the lights are really turned on, then you're like, oh, there
Yeah.
is light here.
Yes, so that's a very good analogy. Yeah. Like, there's another one that I really like. It's you don't know what you don't know, and you're
Oh,
innocent
that is
because you don't know.
that is something I'm starting to see with, and that's coming from the place of the unknown. You don't know what you don't know. And it reminded me, like, when I used to be an account manager. So I'd look after these accounts for legal solutions for in-house legal teams. And there were times when I would be with a client and I'd show them, look, there's this in there. And they're like, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And it's like, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And that's something which not a lot of people spend
Yeah.
this time there.
And I think,
And so
oh, sorry.
no,
I,
no,
I, I,
continue.
yeah,
You might
until
say
you
what I was going to
see,
say.
Mhm.
until you see it in yourself, you understand it, that it happens to all of us, right? Until
Uh,
you see the innocence in yourself, you can relate to the innocence in everyone else.
That's true. And the first thing about improving health is really dropping judgment and self-criticism, because we're really good at that. We judge ourselves, we judge others, we criticize ourselves, we criticize others. When you stop doing that, because of what you were just talking about, you see the innocence in people. There is a huge shift in the love and compassion that happens when you see that in someone else, because you know what it's felt like in yourself. And you see that game of life that we play. And like you said, it's invisible until you know it's there. And I think the
so,
misunderstanding is one of those places where we can just give ourselves that compassion.
how would you say um, holding on to judgment impacts the well-being of a person?
Well, the first thing about judging someone else is we have to realize we are only experiencing another person by the way we think about them only. And if you're pointing the finger saying you're blah, 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 the only reason you know that's there is because of these three fingers pointing back at you.
Oh, that is powerful.
So when you're pointing the finger and saying blah, 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 you might want to take a look inside and say, where am I seeing that in myself? Because we have what's called mirror receptors as human beings, where we mirror what's in our world. We look for what's like ourselves, what we like a friend is someone we have the same interest, we have the same, you know, uh, similarities in our lives. And we like that because it's familiar. But when we find somebody totally different, we point the finger and go, oh, they're like that because of X, Y, and Z based on your own opinion. That's not who they are. That is not who they really are. I have met some of the most kind and loving and amazing people when I drop that judgment and just listen to their lives. That's what I did with my patients a lot. I became curious about who are you really? A really good example is I had a lady who spoke no English. She came from Iraq, somewhere in the Middle East. I don't actually remember where. And she flew across the world with appendicitis. Now, her son was a surgeon in her country and told her, oh, it's all in your mind. You're fine. Go ahead and go. She was moving to America with her son who lived here. And she woke up, and of course, she's in pain. And I didn't speak her language, so I just held her hand and I just said, you're okay. You're just waking up. Are you hurting? And we did the sign language thing. And I was able to get her pain controlled. And then finally she said, my son, my son. So I was like, is he here? And she nods. So she could speak enough English that I could communicate. So I brought her in and the whole world opened up. She started speaking in her language and talking about how angry she was that she went all the way across the world to have her appendix out in America. And she was so grateful and so fun. And so we had a three-way conversation of her talking about her experience and who she was and why she was here. And her son was translating. And she just kept reaching up and touching my face. She just kept reaching up and touching my face. And I would touch her arm. And, thank you, thank you. And it was beautiful. There was just such a feeling amongst the three of us that was truly healing. Well, about 3 months later, I have an appointment at another hospital, and here she comes walking out the door. And she runs up to me and she goes, I know you. I know you. She was speaking better English. And she gave me a hug and she just kept touching my face. And I was like, oh, there was no common language. There was a common feeling. And I was like, this is what it's about. This is why I do what I do, because I like that feeling. And it's a way to connect with human beings that doesn't have to have words. But when you have that connection and that deep sense of who that person really is, you see people different. You drop judgment and you just see a human being living in this world in a way that either touches people positively or doesn't, based on their level of thinking. I don't know if that answers your question.
As you was talking, something just sort of came to me, and that's like how judgment can just melt away.
Yes.
And, without really working on it, without there's a practice where, you find out what you're judging. Okay. I judge myself for, I, I forgive myself for judging myself for X, Y, and Z. And then you find out, who you really are, or, beyond the judgment. But there comes to a point where even practices like that, you don't really need them.
No.
Nothing against them. But, when you can see a person for who they are and what they are, just dropping the noise.
Yeah. I think it is dropping the noise, and I think it's just recognizing it's a hugely powerful thing to recognize your own thinking about something. And then reflecting and questioning yourself, why am I doing that? Why do I
Hmm.
think a certain way? Well, because at some point you decided that was the right way. But when you see it new or you see it different, you just created a new neural pathway in your mind, in your brain, that said, oh, that way of thinking is not true, because we are truth meters. Human beings are truth meters. We want to know what's true because
Hmm.
that helps us. And that's when we talk about mind as wisdom. It always tells us the truth, always, because it only works one way. And we only know that that's true because we are aware and have consciousness, which is a principle. And it's recognizing our thoughts about life aren't necessarily true either, like judging another person. Now, there are bad people in this world, don't get me wrong. There are people in this world who are not good people. And our wisdom will tell us, don't go near them, right? Or, you get those little spidey senses. Have you ever had that, like, I don't know about that? And it's the way we're made. We have spidey senses because we are made that way because of mind. Because of mind, consciousness and thought running through us, we have this awareness that says, I think I won't go over there. Some people call it
You know,
intuition.
you know what you reminded me of a time when went on holiday with my daughter. So we went to Turkey. We got this package holiday. I'm gonna take her to this theme park. It's one of these water ride theme parks. So find a guy who'll do the tour for the next day, and his price was pretty reasonable, stuff like that. So you know, but there was something about it. There was something about it, right? But I paid by credit card, and I'm telling my daughter, I've got this real bad feeling about this, but we pay by credit card, so our money's safe. And then the next day, where we went to the office to go on the tour, it didn't happen.
Oh, yeah.
It didn't happen. And the guy who sort of we booked the package with, he had an argument with his boss, and then he left the business.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Apparently, they didn't have enough people for the tour, and they said,
Mhm.
"Look, we don't have enough people. We can't do it." And he's like, "Well, I've got someone they've paid, and I said this, I'm leaving." And I was going to my daughter, I say, "I just had this feeling this would happen."
Mhm. Mhm. Well, and again, there was your wisdom speaking to you, and you didn't listen.
Um, it, it was a yes and no.
But I mean, that's what we do
Uh,
all the time. We do that with our
yeah.
health. We do that with, and that doesn't mean that it was wrong. I'm not trying to say
Mm,
that. It's that when we get really good at listening to that internal wisdom, it helps us. It helps us make better
mm,
decisions. Um, and of course, I talk about it a lot about health. If you have this symptom, but you keep ignoring the symptom, because I've known many people who have had life-threatening illness, and they said, I knew something was wrong about a year ago, or I knew something was wrong a few weeks ago, but I was afraid to find out. I didn't want to know, because I was afraid
mm,
something might be wrong. But, when we do listen and we take action before it becomes a bigger problem, we completely avert all of that. Or it's much easier to take care of something at the beginning phases, especially of an illness, say cancer or anything, appendicitis. I know my husband ignored his appendicitis for about 2 weeks before he got on the bed and couldn't get up. And I come home from work and I'm like, oh, what's going on with you? I took one look at him. I said, get in the car. We're going to the ER. I said, what is wrong? He goes, well, my side's been hurting for a couple of weeks. I'm like, why did you not say something? Because he'd not been feeling good. He just thought it was something else. And yeah, that turned into a really big deal. Those are the things, those are those love letters that when we listen, there's wisdom there for us. The key, I think, is to begin to take action when we know we should and let it be our guide. And I'm going to say nobody's perfect at that. It's just, can we do it more often, right? Because it's not something we think about, but you can learn it as a skill to help you, which is it's what the principles do for us. It becomes our internal compass. Like, oh, something more at play here.
Mm.
Rosanna, what are you hearing? What would you like to share?
There was something for me with my health. I've been twice in an emergency situation, and I know I have I didn't listen to myself before. My mother was always I don't like how it sounds, but we considered her hypochondriac. She was always afraid that something was happening to her, and she was always in doctors and medicines and all this. And I had such a rejection to that I went to the other side. And even if something is not right, I don't want to be like a hypochondriac, no? And I've been twice in life-threatening situations. So I'm, yes, trying to hear myself and the messages of my body. And don't give them a meaning. So I can, don't put them tags, just feel it and go, no, but yeah.
You know, it's interesting because I think I have a few family members who go to the doctor for if something shows up, they're at the doctor, right? My eye is red, let me go to the doctor. I have a sniffle, let me go to the doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And while I totally get it, because if you don't know what's a normal cold symptom, or maybe you got something in your eye and it's going to be gone in a few hours, the health anxiety is a very real thing for people. Like your mom was a hypochondriac. Like some people identify more with that. I want to prevent every single thing I can. And then we forget that our body is made to heal. It does know what to do. We do not do the healing. What they're looking for is peace of mind. We want peace of mind. Okay, if that's all it is, then I'm okay. It's still the same sniffle, it's still the same red eye. But what if it's something bigger? So I have so much compassion for people who feel that way, because there's so much misinformation, and there is a lot of fear around becoming very ill. Most people, I'm going to prevent death at all costs, But what are we doing between now and then with our quality time remaining? Are we worried so much about it that we can't live? That's a different conversation. And I think that's where good information and health promotion of what's normal for us as aging, as raising children. Many people didn't get that information growing up, so they do the best they know how. And it's, again, there we go back to the judgment of people, of how they choose to live their life. But when we can bring peace of mind, of that ability to go, okay, how much of this is real and how much of this am I making up? Because I have a person in my life who, if something, a sudden pain happens here or there, it's like, oh, what does that mean? And everything is on hyper alert. And when that happens, it's like a week-long spiral of worry, fear, closing down, protection mode. And it's a really hard thing to watch. And usually they'll call me and we'll have a conversation and we'll kind of say, where in your life are you feeling the most anxious? And it's usually not related to what's happening, the pain or whatever. The pain is a symptom of what she's been thinking about. And usually, most often, when we get finished talking, I will ask, do you still have the pain? And she's like, yeah, no. So we can have physical pain based on the way we're thinking about life, because it distracts us from that fear of whatever's happening in our world. And there's actually a lot of research behind it. Hannah Studley talks about it quite a lot. She and I both have a love of Dr. Sarno's work. John Sarno is a functional medicine doctor who had a very long career. I think he died 4 or 5 years ago, but he started in 1963 and was a back surgeon and realized he wasn't helping people, that the cure wasn't there. And he started making the connection between mental pain and physical pain, debilitating physical pain. And the more he talked about becoming more mentally healthy, not pointing to the symptoms, but how you're thinking about your life, people started getting better. So he called it tension myoneural syndrome or tension myositis syndrome. He had 2 different names. And I realized that was a really big deal for me even. And I didn't know that my mental anguish, if you will, was manifesting as pain in various parts of my body that moved around, And so that was why it was hard to diagnose a problem, because it wasn't the same problem every time. It was either my stomach or my leg or my hip or my foot, but they hurt really bad. There was a connection to that. And that realization that the mind has that much power to affect our bodies as a nurse was incredibly important. And I began to see my patients not as a diagnosis or a symptom, but as a human being who maybe has something else going on underneath the surface, knowing the pain is real, what's happening with them is real, but the cause may not be what we think it is. And it takes all of us as doctors and surgeons and nurses and human beings to sort of help people see that for themselves.
It's such
Do you know,
an important work that you do, because my experience with medicine and doctors is that they see an X-ray or a study and they just give you the medicine, or you have to be go to surgery without even having crossed conversation with you or eye contact with you. It's
I think it's the deepest desire to help stop suffering with however you've been trained into the system, right?
yeah.
And medications do work. We can't say, no, don't take it, because they do work. But I know that if you don't also address the individual's view of life or what's really going on with them outside of the current physical state,
As a whole,
you can't separate it. You cannot separate it. But when you can actually ask someone, even a simple question like, is there something underneath the pain that you think is driving the pain? What do you think that might be? And you and unpeel the onion. Maybe the first one is, I have no idea. It's just pain. Something is wrong with me. Okay, let's acknowledge that something's wrong. Is there an emotion underneath that comes to mind? And can you feel that in your body as you think about it? And if you can drop into that place, and you can usually go, what is that pain trying to tell me? What's there for you? And let them talk about it and describe it. And that will usually open up the next layer of the onion. And you just keep letting someone uncover their own feelings, their own thoughts, their own reasons why. And then you let them be with it, because you can't be inside of their mind as they connect with themselves. Most people are not connected to themselves. It's usually, what problem's coming at me? Let me put out all the fires. Let me do this. Let me do this. Let me do this. And we forget that we're made to live a full embodied life. And when we do that, when we hold space for someone for that, so many changes happen within a person that changes them and they don't even know. Like, you can have insight after insight after insight within yourself when you understand this system that only works one way, and you heal in spite of yourself. I don't know if that makes sense, but there's a very different place within us when we allow ourselves to look within and ask those questions. And it's really nice if you can do it with someone else, but you can do it by yourself too. And it's very powerful. It's very powerful to listen to wisdom and what wants to come through.
I think most people are aware that they do have some wisdom, because it shows up as intuition or some gut type of feeling. It's usually like they notice it in one or two occasions, not ongoing. And for me, when I had that gut feeling, that intuition, I thought that intuition was something that was always going to be. So, give an example. When I met my ex-wife, I knew stuff. Great, she's the one, right? That was there. And then after a while, the relationship didn't really I kind of hit some rocks and stuff. And there was a feeling in me saying, mm, it was like a discomforting feeling. There was this sort of wisdomy type of feeling. I couldn't put my finger on it, but in that moment, I was like, well, I had that first initial intuition, wisdom, and I thought that was going to be forever. And it's
Mhm.
like, no, it changes. It's in real time. And that kind of sort of
You know
blew me
what's
away.
interesting about that? We're made for that. We're made to be attracted to certain people. And there's a chemical reaction that's happening inside of you that releases that feel good hormones, dopamine, serotonin. So when we're in love and have that feeling that people call it puppy love, we want that feeling for the rest of our lives. It just feels wonderful. And
Hmm,
then, like you said, when things change, we think it's the relationship.
hmm,
It's our biochemistry. Life starts happening. Now we have the person in our lives, and then quote real life happens, right? And we're like, and so you said you hit some rocks. Not as many of those feel good chemicals were rolling around in your body, giving you
uh-huh,
that feeling that you were looking for. So it felt like disconnection.
hmm,
Interesting, huh? That we can actually, that's our physiological state, including our spidey senses. We can call that one of them. But we think it's the other person, or we think it's the relationship. We don't connect it to, oh, this is life unfolding. And in this space, what do I want to do? When you don't know that you didn't know this was a part of life, you made choices and decisions from the space of I don't know, I don't know. Nothing wrong with it. You just don't know.
hmm. It's the kicker when you know afterwards, and then you think, oh
Yeah,
my gosh,
yeah.
can't remember who it was. I don't know if it was Kathy Case or someone. I sort of mentioned this, and they were saying like, it's like being in a warehouse. You know, in a dark warehouse, you knock some stuff over, and the lights come out, and now you know.
Yeah.
Are you going to be upset for it knocking stuff over? You know better. And I'm like, yeah, but that doesn't really help.
Well, in a way, there's now awareness.
Yeah.
There's awareness that you didn't know. And again, how can you judge yourself for the mess that you made knocking things over when you didn't know? How can you would you say you were doing the best you knew how with what you knew?
So the ironic thing, something just came to it. It's like, yeah, but you should have known.
Oh, really? How should you have known?
Yeah.
That's where we
You
drop
can't.
judgment because we
Yeah.
don't know, they don't know. It helps us drop into that space and be more compassionate.
Hmm.
And when you give that to people, also known as unconditional love, I'm not condoning bad behavior. I'm just saying there's an ability within us to see the good in people in spite of themselves. And then you use your spidey senses to say, should I be in this circumstance or not?
Hmm.
Right? Because some people are ready to hear and some people are not. And that's a distinction or a discernment. You can't be responsible for someone else's experience. It's not possible. But people
That
will
is
always recognize how you made them feel, even if they're acting badly.
hmm, It's powerful. So we're kind of close to the hour. So I'm curious, has anything new or different landed for you, Teresa?
I am so grateful for conversations like this, to see through other people's eyes how this work impacts them. The deep love and connection that I feel here now is very powerful. And it changes the world. Every conversation like this sends ripples out to the world to change the world. And so I'm very grateful to get to be in the conversation and see through your eyes and see the things that are helpful and, maybe not as clear, but it all matters.
Do you have any final words, Rosanna?
Well, thanks for inviting me, and I'm so glad I met Teresa, and I love it when it's so easy to feel connected with someone you have never met before, and on Zoom, not even, and I really feel connected. So thanks for inviting me.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Connection with you, we'll know it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Teresa.
Yeah, it's been really, really quite fun to visit with you and get to know you a little more. And we'll see you next time.
Oh, man, I look forward to it. Thank you.
All right.
See you,
Yeah.
Rosanna.
Take care.
Bye.
See you. Thank you. Bye.